in Europe and in the belt around the Northern Hemisphere, the peak heatwave season rises through January into August. So, and the planetary waves that lock in these systems that are developing these heat waves are quite difficult to dislocate. They are quite difficult to dislodge. So they're relatively stationary. So we should expect, or at least plan, for these extreme heat waves to continue through August. Well, certainly in the global climate signal, we are seeing minimum temperatures rise faster than the maximums. So that's in a climate sense, but also in the weather sense within these heat wave systems. Once we build up enough heat, we do see the minimums begin to rise, and that means we will be experiencing sustained high temperatures for longer during a day. That builds up the heat in the environment. That is when we lose the capacity to recover overnight.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to Environmental Coffee House. It's good to see you guys.
It's great to be here. We've got a dynamite show tonight, Sandy. We really do.
We have a good group. We've got Kristen Rose and hi, Kim. Thank you for moderating. Jean and Matt Hunter. Hi, honey. Tommyist and Gary, thank you. And Raza, Andre, just everyone. Great to see you guys. Jen, why don't you give them the 50,000 feet view overview of what the hell is going on tonight?
We have such a rich show tonight. So a good part of our show tonight is going to be spent in our charts. We're going to get down and dirty. We're going to get into a lot of movies. And then once we start playing with things, we've got what's SOTO stand for? SOTO by Worldview. This is going to be the Florida sea surface temperature animation, and that is actually very interesting. Then we're going to take a look at the Antarctic sea ice, see what's going on there. And then we're going to actually ask what's causing this summer's extreme heat waves and go into that. So that's a pretty interesting article from Science News. And then climate.gov, July 2023 El Niño update, learning the steps, pretty interesting. And The Guardian, rampant heat waves threaten food security of entire planet, scientists warn.
Lovely.
And then we actually have a very cute video from one of our people, Sandy, so I don't know when you're going to be fitting that in, but it is super cute.
Okay.
And that is where we're going, guys.
Yeah, we've got a lot going on. We do. So I guess we will get started, and I'll set us up. Hang on, guys. We will be there. Okay. Now, we're going to start here with our usual... Wait a second. Hang on. No matter what I do, there's always work. All right. So we have our usual presentation now, which is a new part of the show. And this is a good one. So Jen's going to read the first piece. Okay.
There was a time when kings and generals would fall on their sword when they were defeated, or when their faith in their gods collapsed. Nowadays, so-called leaders assuming opportunistic positions betray the defense of their own people and nature, protecting or advancing their own careers. The voices of climate scientists have become subdued, ignored, or non-existent. There may be too many historians to document the 20th and 21st century crimes against humanity and against nature. And this is from Andrew Glickman, right?
Yeah, Glickson. Andrew
Glickson.
Yep. And so because of Andrew Glickson, we definitely decided we were going to bring you this guy. Oh my God. Oh my God. Let me
Hmm.
make sure
What
that
have we here,
we
Sandy?
have us a science, a CO2 denier, actually. We
Oh,
do.
really?
Oh, we do. We do. We have a guy that some of you know.
The climate right now is no warmer than it's been many times throughout history. Our baseline is now the lowest that carbon dioxide has been in 600 million years. As far as temperature change, the IPCC's first report of 1992 showed that the medieval warm period was warmer than the present. Well, this didn't fit the narrative, so by the time the 1996 report came out, it was a completely contrived graph called the hockey stick. So what they did was they got rid of the medieval warm period and the little ice age, and so instead of the graph doing this, they flattened it out, and then they added instrumental record on the end that looks like it's going way up. The point is that the people that are calling them out on it are not getting the media coverage. Because look, at this point there's billions of dollars going into the whole climate change narrative.
So yeah, this guy.
Wow.
And I just have a little piece, if I can pull it up, that's not it. Hang on a second, guys. I had a piece. Oh yeah, there it is. So if you're interested, there is an article about him, Randall Carson. And some people have tried to tell me that he's he's wonderful. How to deny the climate crisis like a pro and get away with it. We're not going to read it. It'll be in the show notes, but the dude is definitely,
He sounds so convincing.
he's
It's
a
like he kind of
gaslighting
throws you
bullshitter.
off. It's like, wait, did I miss something? Is he right? Is this like what? It's
No,
that convincing when
no.
you
And he's not a
yeah.
geologist either. He's not. So that takes me to this. It's 100 degrees in here, and we ain't got no electricity. But at least we're safe from trannies and drag shows. Oh, God bless Governor Abbott. God bless Governor Abbott. Oh, we just love Governor Abbott. Yes, we do. Yes. And God has spoken.
And God has spoken.
Yeah, and now that God has spoken, we're going to hear from this dude.
Can I point out that there are a lot of headlines right now about how hot it is outside? I know. It's hot outside. You know what I can do about that? 0 things. Thank God we have this thing called air conditioning. It's awesome. You know it's a great cure for being super duper hot outside? Being a first world country. Amazing. It works out tremendously well because it turns out that if you have a really solid energy grid and you have the capacity to turn on that AC, you're living quite comfortably these days. You know what sucks? Global poverty. You know what brings global poverty? Decarbonization. Let me also point out that the media always do this routine when it's very, very hot outside. They never ever cover it when it's cold. So it's funny. The media will say, well, it's not global warming, it's now climate change. And the reason they changed the term from global warming to climate change is because the climate in many cases is colder during the winters than it was before. So it's hotter during the summers and it's colder during the winters. They've called this climate weirding, but that doesn't really seem to go over all that way. So now they call it climate change, which of course is an incredibly vague term because the climate is always changing. However, it is worth noting at this point that all of this, folks, millions will die of the heat waves that are occurring on planet. Oh my God, the ocean is so hot during the summer in Florida. Okay, so first of all, it is hot this summer in Florida. Also, it's hot like every summer in Florida. You've been to Florida? It's really, really hot and humid. Like, I noticed when I first visited here several years ago, and we moved anyway because air conditioning exists.
My God.
That guy's really offensive.
But yeah, he's a turd. He's a right-wing turd.
Yeah.
He is, and he's embarrassing. But Jen, talk about this, and then he can go
Well,
fuck
yeah.
himself.
Yeah, guys, so this is a sea surface temperature anomaly map, and check it out. It's pretty interesting. This July has been notable. We are cutting through absolutely new territory. This is from July 19th, so 2 days ago. And look how anomalously hot it is off the tip of like Newfoundland, Nova Scotia. And look how anomalously cold the sea surface temperature is around Greenland. It looks like a little puddle, right? That really looks like a little puddle. And that's what it is, because it's all that sea ice melt that's coming right off the ice
Yep.
sheet in Greenland, pouring into the sea and making the sea colder than usual. So interesting to see what's happening here. It is just a blister of heat. And then if you look over at the west coast of South America, you will see the El Nino there, right? Do you see the El Nino over there? It's
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
just coming in on the west coast where Peru is. And that El Nino is a stripe of red hot heat, anomalously hot water,
Yeah.
coming over all the way on the Pacific Ocean from the Philippines. Also, one other thing I'd like to point out, check out the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean is anomalously hot. It's like a bathwater. And that also coincides with in Tunis, in Tunisia, right on the
Mm-hmm.
tip of Africa, sticking into the heat of the Mediterranean, right on the tip of North Africa there. And that whole area is anomalously hot. So this is just a pictorial of where the heat is concentrating in the water areas of our globe.
It is. That it is. And we have to move on to show you what's happening because of it. Because of it. Gene, you're here. This is Texas. This is what happened in Texas. Fish are dying. The sea is hot. It's horrible. Nobody talks about it. They act like this is normal. Look at that. Yep. It's just the beginning. Yeah, so that happened
so
in
sad.
Texas. It's really, yeah, it's really sad, but you don't hear that much about this stuff. You really don't. And of course, in Texas, they're probably, I'm sure it's denial, 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 denial. All right. So we're
Indeed.
going to, yeah, but denial with a big D, Jen. All right. We're going to move on a little bit. And we have Jeff Goodell to entertain us for a moment. And he's going to talk about this.
So I moved to Texas 4 or 5 years ago, and I had lived in the Northeast, and it was really eye-opening moving here because Texas really is the belly of the beast when it comes to both the energy transformation and the impacts of climate change. This is a state that was, built around fossil fuels. There's tremendous riches here as a result of our dependence upon fossil fuels. There's tremendous sort of economic and cultural inertia around oil and gas in this state, and you feel it everywhere you go here. But it's also the state where this transformation towards clean energy is happening very quickly. We had, an extreme heat dome in the last couple of weeks here. There was a lot of concern about the grid going down, and the grid was okay, and largely because of 25% of the power that was going onto the grid during this extreme heat wave was from solar power, which performs very well in hot weather and is not only more reliable but cheaper. And so we have these Texas is making this sort of transformation to a cleaner grid. The problem, of course, is it is not happening fast enough. And in Texas, you feel the changing of our climate in a very dramatic way. There's the risks of sea level rise in Houston. There's a $30 billion Ike Dike that's beginning to be constructed to protect the petrochemical industry and the Houston shipping channel there. There's the heat waves that we've been suffering through in the last few weeks. There's, water shortages. As part of my reporting, I was in the Rio Grande Valley, one of the most productive agricultural regions in the country, and the Rio Grande is drawing to a trickle there. And so, there's these cascading consequences here where you're feeling the world changing beneath our feet, and yet the kind of politics and culture of this place are lagging far behind those changes.
Jeff, we've been talking about this for, well, since it was enacted, but as the deadly heat wave grips Texas, where you are, Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill eliminating mandatory water breaks for construction workers. I want to play a clip of Ana Gonzalez, the Texas AFL-CIO Deputy Director of Policy and Politics.
Texas is the deadliest state when it comes to construction. One worker dies every 3 days in our state. In fact, more workers die of heat-related illnesses in our state than any other state.
This is the mayor of the Petro Metro, that's Houston, Sylvester Turner, who warned the bill would have devastating consequences for people working outdoors.
If House Bill 2127 is allowed to stand, and it prevents municipal units of government from saying to employers that under extreme weather conditions like heat, that you can't be mandated to provide water breaks, then can you imagine the number of workers who are out there in the heat, construction workers, people working on buildings, developments, you name it, that are going to face heat strokes. Some people will even possibly lose their lives because they're working in very dangerous conditions. This bill is totally insensitive. It goes contrary to the health and well-being and welfare of workers who are out there doing, working under conditions that many, if not most folk, would dare not work under.
I mean, that's the Houston Mayor Turner. Jeff, he was talking about the bill, hoping it wouldn't be passed. It has been passed and is going to soon go into effect.
Yeah, it is. And you know, Mayor Turner called it insensitive, and I would say that's a gross understatement. It's barbaric. I mean, I live here. I see what it's like working outside. I see these workers building, you know, the buildings that are going up here in Austin. Austin's a boom town, and there's construction everywhere. And, you know, it's hard for me during these heat waves to walk to my mailbox to check the mail. The idea that, you know, you're working on a rooftop or laying asphalt outside in this heat, and it's you're forbidden from taking water in shade breaks. I mean, it's just like back to, you know, kind of Sinclair Lewis's The Jungle. I mean, I don't know how to explain this other than to talk about, you know, a kind of, you know, there's a kind of racism to this. You know, the many of the workers here that are keeping the state going are Mexican. They're coming across the border. They're work incredibly hard. You know, it's just, you know, a kind of politics that's rising here in Texas that I have no kind of good moral explanation for how this can be justified in any way. And in my book, I write about the death of an agricultural worker named Sebastian Perez, not in Texas, but in Oregon, who died in the fields because he was afraid that if he took a water break and a shade break, he would lose his job. And so this kind of this law that the governor, this legislation that the governor has signed, is going to directly result in the deaths of many Texans.
And I hope many lawsuits against Texas. What do you think, Jen?
Yeah, Texas is a pretty tough place to live.
Yeah.
And of course, they're one of the centers of climate denial as well, politically anyway.
Well, Poppy Davis is here with us, and she got out. And Anthony Davis, no relation, Anthony lives there, and he does suffer there, living there, and he tells us about it. Anthony, hi. We're hoping you're feeling better, by the way. You know. All right, guys, now we're going to move over to something. Put your seatbelts on for this one.
What's this?
Oh, yeah.
South Korea?
All over.
Like this house in Karatsu City, landslides have blocked roads.
Canada is on track. The country's been battling what experts believe is the most severe wildfire season.
Pretty hairy, huh? Scary.
That person just fell off their car into the water. Shit.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, USA hasn't been spared. Vermont.
That is wild.
Look at that. India. Everywhere.
ये है छोटा हरिद्वार सब अपनी बाइक
你们只是少的生命了，你们莫来啊！这边啊。
This is. It just makes me.
Oh my God.
It just makes me want to cry. Well, I do cry. I mean, I'm not going to lie to anybody. I cry, and making these shows is not easy, you know. And
No.
I do cry, but it's therapeutic. It's cathartic. Now we
Yeah.
take a breath and we move on and we talk about this.
So this is kind of an interesting overview of the different cities around the world alphabetically. So we're talking about Athens, Bangkok, Barcelona, Beijing, Hong Kong, Calcutta, Kuala Lumpur, London, Madrid, Marseille, Miami, Mumbai, Paris, Rome, and Rangoon. So all of them, if you look on the, I guess, right-hand side where it's red, that is where it is changing. So what we're doing here is we're tracking change. And the change is the additional red that you see. So this is how it is in each one of these cities. And some of the cities are like more extreme changing than others. Some of the cities have bigger ranges than others. But in all cases, what's notable is the trend, and the trend is the expansion over on the x-axis to the right. And so that's what we're seeing. We're seeing climate change trends in action.
Yep.
You know, so this is compared to the 1950s. So this is like 70 years ago, it was like this.
Yeah.
Now, and that's one human lifetime, right? And now, one human lifetime, it's like this.
Yeah.
And this trend, unfortunately, doesn't show any slowing at all. It's not slowing down at all. It's going to be increasing, and this is kind of the first nudge into each city's own new trends, which will be warmer. So we're looking at a warmer future in all cities.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that, my friends, takes us to Costa Rica. Jean, you were talking about this in the chat. This is a tragedy. A tragedy.
God.
Yeah, let's look at it one more time. Look at that. All bleaching. And I'm sorry it's where you are, Jean, in paradise.
Mm.
Okay, take it away, Jen.
Right? So, guys, we're looking at the global sea ice extent anomaly, and we've got our kind of zero right there in the middle. You can kind of see it, I think. Am I reading that right? So, I guess at the top. Can't see it very well, guys. But the point is, we are 2023 the blue. And the main point to understand here, do you see that slight shading there? It's kind of like a light blue, almost touching our line, right? The light, even the lightest blue. The lightest blue, yeah. That is the 5th standard deviation. That means that we are well outside here in 2023, pretty much ever since June started. Do you see in June, we dropped out of the 5th standard deviation, and we are really actually technically cutting our own track right now. So we'll have to see how this year ends up. But this is where we are in late July.
With the global sea ice. Yep.
Global sea ice extent.
Yes.
Yeah, so global sea ice. So this is all the sea ice in around Antarctica and in the Arctic. So that's the sea ice pretty much that's left. So that is what we're looking at. And you can just see that the sea ice is going away.
It's going.
Yeah, so those are standard deviations. Yes. You can kind of see.
And then we have our friend Elliot, Professor Elliot, who made this one. And this is the global sea surface temperature. And we were showing this. And
yeah. Well, you guys can remember back in the very beginning of July when the sheer panic hit everybody when the sea surface temperature started to go crazy. And this is what we're showing, that first wave right there in Elliot's chart. That was when, I think that's also when Elliot published his sea surface temperature chart, and it was picked up, by the New York Times.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was.
It was picked up by everybody.
It's what started my depression.
No kidding, right?
It did. The sea surface, the sea temperature. Yes.
Yeah. So you can see it bouncing. So it kind of went down a little bit, and now it's going back up. So it's kind of like got a bit of a pattern. And it's pretty interesting.
I wonder, Jen, when it was low, if that was the older water somehow. If I don't know, we'd have to ask Jim if storms have anything to do with any of the water, coming up and down through the columns. I don't know, but it.
Well, the thing of it is, this is a global surface temperature anomaly. So this is an average for the entire world. So it's hard to say.
It's hard to
all
say
the different things that might influence it, because it's going to be more like global trends and things like that.
Pretty heavy. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you.
Oh.
And here we go. We're moving on to India.
बड़ी हाल है भाई वाह यार बड़ी कदी नहीं हाली हाँ इधर लगा रहा अभी बड़ी जाती देखी जी गाँव में देख
It's an animal. Buffalo. Buffalo. My God.
Oh my God. The animals are just it's just there's no words to know the suffering in the wildlife community. Wildlife, farm animals.
So what we are seeing here is air temperature at 2 meters all over the whole world, whether it be sea or land. And it's notable, you can kind of trace the path of the El Nino. You can see that track making its way across the Pacific and slamming right into South America there, Peru, right through the Galapagos Islands there. Boom. So that's the El Nino. And it is affecting everything. Where are some really big hotspots? Surprisingly, take a look at Antarctica there, Sandy. There's that red blister down there. That is a pretty big anomaly down in Antarctica, and that is in West Antarctica, kind of around the peninsula on either side. So it looks like Antarctica is getting surrounded by abnormally warm water, probably on either side, and it's going to be causing heating. And it's also going to be causing melting, and you can see evidence of that melting right next door to it. If you look at the Antarctica kind of like blister, and then look at all that blue on the tail of West Antarctica, and that is evidence right there of melting ice. You can see all that dark blue is the melting ice that's happening from the deep red, right? So, you know, it's a pretty grim picture. There's a lot of anomalies, and there's a lot of patterns. And interestingly enough, if you look at that blue in Antarctica again, Sandy, and in West Antarctica, see how it kind of even travels up from the blue into light blue by South America. So it's affecting the global climate. There's enough cold water going into the central one ocean, right? The ocean that surrounds Antarctica, and it's actually coloring that whole region because there's so much ice coming off of the ice sheet, and it's melting into the water, and you can see it puddling. That's the melted ice. You can see the melted ice in East Antarctica too, coming off
and
on the top, especially around the Totten Glacier. So the Totten Glacier, it's on the very right lower side. There's a deep blue right there on the very lower right side of East Antarctica there.
I don't know if you can see my arrow anymore.
No, but I bet everybody can see it. That is the Totten Glacier right there melting. And East Antarctica is melting at record pace too. So you can see like these plumes of blue coloring the water, and it's actually going all the way up to Cape Town in South Africa. That's amazing. Antarctic's cooler water is going all the way to Cape Town in South Africa. That's amazing. God. So interesting. Pictures tell 1,000 words, don't they, guys?
Yes, and so do these. This was a hurricane in Italy. This is recent. What I get scared of all the time here. I don't want it to go out tornado. Look at that. Yeah, we're going around the world today. Yeah, that's unreal. And here we move to the tropics. Jen, if you want to talk about this.
Again, so we are looking at the tropics in general, and each one of these gray lines, of course, is a year. And it looks like no matter what type of measurement we are looking at, what kind of graph we are looking at, if it is a multi-year graph, it is outside the standard deviation. So look at the dotted line on either side. This is the standard deviation, and we are not in it. 2023 is the black, and it's well outside. And again, since July, cutting its own track. It was kind of portending to that in June. You can see it was sort of flirting with going outside, and it did go outside in June. But in July, it's not even like following the same pattern. It's like somewhere else.
Wow.
So no matter what you look at, you're looking at things outside the norm.
Everything's, yeah. But we're not going to say the new normal. It's abnormal.
It's abnormal.
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 Yeah, it's abnormal. Abnormal. And let's go to China. Yep, there's China. And this you sent me, Dr. Matthew Barlow.
Yes, this is 30 days of sea surface temperature anomaly in the North Atlantic. So check it out. This is the freaking roasting of the North Atlantic. Look how suddenly it just goes to the highest possible abnormal. So that indicates it's well outside the norm of anything. It's so bizarre. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it is. It's quite bizarre. Quite bizarre. Mm-mm-mm. And we move on. Now, this is really bizarre because this is Italy. This hail storm. This is hail, guys.
Sembra che ci sia il fiume, un fiume che scorre. Adesso vedo che c'è lì quello delle scarpe davanti che gli sta entrando l'acqua dentro il negozio.
Wow. I mean, that was like when I saw those, and there were more of the hail like that. It was shocking. It was shocking what people are living through. And here we're going to move on a little bit more in Antarctica, but we've got a whole thing on this. We're going to teach you, give you some tools here tonight. This is the SCAR site. You'll see it all. We just wanted to show you what it looks like in Antarctica. But there's more until we move on to good old Zagreb. Go for it, Jennifer.
Oh my God. So we are looking at here at the sea ice thickness in the Arctic. And each line is a year. You guys know the drill. So we are not at the lowest sea ice thickness that we've ever been, but it kind of bounces. So you can kind of see it's going down, down, down. Then it kind of goes up a little bit. And then right now we're in that kind of going, you know, it's kind of that back and forth before it goes boom again, you know.
Yeah.
You can kind of feel it. It like
Yeah.
goes, like it's like being on a swing, right?
I wish I had that sound effect. I don't have that sound effect, but yeah. Well, so you know, hey, should we enjoy ourselves?
Everything's fine.
Yeah, everything's fine. Let's just you know,
Everything's fine.
we're dead men walking, but we can certainly have a drink.
Everything's fine. Don't worry about a thing, baby.
All right, now we have a little treat. This is from a follower who is also our Facebook friend who's from Norway. I think you guys might really like this. It's really, really cute. And the story is he did a little karaoke. He sent it on his Facebook. He put it on his Facebook, and I said to him, oh, could you do something, you know, sing for me for the show, do something with me with a video. Well, he sent me this. He did this 11 years ago. So enjoy. It's cute.
The ice is melting, the forest dies. What do I care? I just come up with a brilliant plan. The ocean rising in a sea of lies, more than we can bear. But I ain't gonna give a damn. I'm gonna move from planet Earth, find a cool place somewhere in the universe. 'Cause space is so very big, lots of places where you and I can live. Real estate brokers gonna find new markets there. Do I need air conditioning in the Venus air?
In the Doomosphere.
I'm gonna move Find cool place somewhere in the universe. CO2 is emitted out and the algae starts. Soon we're gonna suffer everyone. Like a blind driving to hell thinking this must be paradise. I just fresh out, fear and doubt. I'm gonna move from planet Earth. Find a cool place somewhere in the universe. If you want to tag along.
2011, Devon.
I don't know exactly where we're gonna be, so I better call up soon my real estate broker guy. Was it Venus or Mars? It's Pluto, the ultimate high. I'm gonna move from planet Earth. Find a cool place somewhere in the universe. Zapoopa, da poopa, dee doo da boo da doo. Zapoopa boo, zapoopa, ba da poopa, ba doo da doo. Zapapoo, zapapoo, ba zapoo, ba boo da doo da doo. Zapoo ba doo, zapoo da, zapoo da boo da doo da doo. Almost 4 billion years has the Earth been full of life, but the fun is gonna end very soon. I'm gonna go on my mission to Mars and start an ecological farm, and grow carrots there and sing how high the moon. So I'm gonna move from planet Earth, find a cool place somewhere in the universe. It's really a foolproof plan, you'll see. On a new planet, can I buy my own country? And my alien wife will have 10 breasts at their peak, and 7 vaginas, one for every day of the week. I'm gonna move from planet Earth, find a cool place somewhere in the uni place, somewhere in the uni place, somewhere in the universe.
I loved it, loved it, loved it. And that is our slideshow for tonight. Yeah. So actually, that was good. I like that. 7 vaginas for 7 days. I thought it was pretty funny. So
Amazing.
now we have, I'm pretty sure we were going to do this first, Jennifer, this one, or, well, we already showed that one. All right. We've got one more video, but now this gets serious because this is the place that is the Antarctic researchers. And this is amazing. They have a channel. Their videos, I've been watching their videos, are amazing. You have to really, really, well, you got to work at this one. So let me do what I was going to do, Jen, and we are going to play this for you guys. So hang on. All right. Here we go.
Our nobility, the very best of what we are capable of as people, is embodied in our intelligence, our curiosity, and our empathy. And the place where these intersect is Antarctica. Human activity in Antarctica was exploding in the 1950s, at a time of great fear and distrust between nations. But instead of letting the Cold War conflict spill over into the Antarctic, the global community changed course and did something extraordinary. These same nations agreed to designate 1957 and 1958 as the first international geophysical year, a global scientific collaboration to investigate Earth's geophysical and meteorological systems. It resulted in the founding of more than 50 research stations in Antarctica and set in place the mechanisms to freely share information and resources across the countries. The Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research, SCAR, was also founded in 1957 to organise and catalyse international scientific collaboration in the Antarctic. SCAR has pioneered the expansion of both Antarctic sciences and the science diplomacy that is the foundation of Antarctic governance. It was understood that we could only succeed in this endeavour together, and the remarkable scientific and political success of this collaboration led directly to the creation of the Antarctic Treaty in 1959, setting aside the entire continent for peace and science.
In realtà sarebbe più corretto dire pace attraverso la scienza, perché la spinta verso l'ignoto e la sete di conoscenza hanno unito le nazioni attorno a un obiettivo comune. Oggi più di 30 gruppi dello SCAR coordinano la ricerca a livello globale e i nostri programmi di ricerca scientifica rispondono a delle domande scientifiche critiche e rappresentano collaborazioni internazionali che coinvolgono molti paesi. Non solo per capire l'Antartide, ma anche per capire come il nostro pianeta sta cambiando e cosa significa per noi.
We're trying to understand how climate change in Antarctica affects the entire ocean, atmosphere and cryosphere now and in the future. I remember the first time I set foot on the Ross Ice Shelf. I was standing on the world's largest ice shelf, roughly the size of France, and it was floating beneath my feet on the world's largest unexplored ocean. I knew right then that we were there to study something important. When that ice shelf melts, large parts of the Antarctic ice sheet behind it will melt, with the potential to reshape the world's shorelines. It hadn't quite yet dawned on me that we were studying the future of humanity. We know that Antarctica is melting. 90% of the glaciers are in rapid retreat on the Antarctic Peninsula, and more than a dozen ice shelves have completely collapsed, causing the glaciers behind them to release ice into the ocean up to 10 times faster. It appears the ice shelves are the handbrake on the ice sheet, holding back vast quantities of land ice from flowing under gravity into the ocean. Once the ice shelves go, the ice sheet is unleashed and can lead to rapid and potentially unstoppable sea level rise. The continent as a whole is shedding 250 gigatons of ice every year, a six-fold increase since the 1980s, and what is of concern is that rate is continuing to accelerate. This alone is resulting in sea level rise that will change the face of civilization over the next 100 years and would directly impact more than 1 billion people who live on the world's coastlines. But even these dire signals of impending change may actually be underestimating the real danger. We just don't know where all the thresholds and instabilities in the Antarctic ice sheet are. For instance, the Pine Island Glacier is retreating and thinning rapidly, and we believe that this glacier is like a genuine plug blocking the outward flow from the West Antarctic ice sheet. When that glacier disappears, our models suggest it could trigger catastrophic collapse of a large part of the West Antarctic ice sheet, and in a very short time. And this is really why our program is so important. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. Only through science can we even attempt to prepare ourselves for the world that we are heading into.
Pero no son solo los cambios físicos de la Antártida los que tienen implicancias a nivel global. Necesitamos comprender cómo funcionan los ecosistemas antárticos internamente y cómo se relacionan con otros ecosistemas oceánicos, y lo que debemos hacer para protegerlos a medida que experimentan rápidos cambios ambientales. En un buen día en la Antártida las aguas literalmente estallan de vida. El océano austral sustenta el ecosistema más rico del mundo si se mide en términos de biomasa, es decir, el peso total de todos los animales que allí viven. El mayor contribuyente es un pequeño crustáceo parecido a un camarón, el krill, la criatura más prolífica del planeta. Cada año las grandes ballenas migran hacia el sur para darse un festín de krill en los cortos meses de verano. Pero lo más interesante para mí es lo que sucede cuando regresan al norte hacia las aguas más cálidas. Mientras digieren y excretan sus vientres llenos de comida, las ballenas fertilizan todas las aguas por las que nadan, trayendo nutrientes cruciales de la Antártida a los ecosistemas marinos del mundo. Recién estamos comenzando a desentrañar la compleja red de interconexiones biológicas que nos unen a todos con la Antártida.
Peace through science. Power through science. The power to prepare for the future. That is what makes SCAR so important. There are so many questions we need to answer, so many we have yet to ask.
Como que o aquecimento global está impactando na formação de água profunda na Antártica?
Will changes in the Southern Ocean result in feedbacks that accelerate the pace of climate change?
O que vai acontecer com os ecossistemas antárticos à medida que o gelo marinho for desaparecendo?
What do we have to do to protect Adelie penguins?
Como que é possível pescar de forma sustentável no Oceano Austral?
Will storms affecting Antarctica become more severe under global warming?
E como que a neve lá na Antártica vai se transformar em chuva?
How will changing wind patterns affect the delicate balance of ice shelves along coastal Antarctica?
Por que as baleias de baixo estão se recuperando da caça industrial, mas as baleias azuis não?
Can we predict when marine ice sheets and ice shelf collapse will be irreversible with severe impacts on global sea level?
A gente pode usar o nosso conhecimento das simulações do Oceano Austral e da Antártica, combinado com dados proxies, para interpretar as projeções do clima no futuro?
Science is our common language, and the global importance of Antarctica demands that we all continue to work together to understand.
And here we are. Here we are.
That was a good one.
Yeah, this is an amazing place.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming along. Good
Whoops.
morning, good
Wait a
afternoon, good
minute.
evening, wherever you may be.
Uh-oh.
And welcome to this plenary session. This is the David
Do you hear
Walton
somebody
Antarctic
talking?
Science lecture. And it's my
Yes.
pleasure to chair this session. and
Somebody has
introduce our
joined
plenary
our
speaker.
meeting.
I know.
First of all, I just wanted
but-
to briefly introduce myself and the Antarctic Science.
Okay. That's why it went right to the next video. All right.
Exactly.
So we
There you
already
go.
did that. And Jennifer, you're going to show us all about this one.
So interesting, guys. So the whole Gulf is heating up, and this is, of course, a map of around Florida, the Gulf of Mexico, the beginning of the Caribbean. And what we have here is the last 30 days. So you can see the animation of the heat blooms of water. Each picture is one day, and this runs from the beginning of June. Actually, it might be 45 days because it's the beginning of June and the first 20 days of July. So this is current data. And you can just see how hot it is and how anomalously hot it is in so many areas around this area. So, just another way of looking at it, but the ocean temperatures are really heating up. So that's what we can see.
And it's a website we haven't showed you before. So it's pretty cool. And you
Yeah.
can actually, I think you can make it go faster. But I was just happy
wow.
to have this. Yeah, I don't know if I want to play with it too much fun. Of course, all of these links will be in the show notes, and you can play with all the different layers in comparisons. But this is just what we wanted to show you. We wanted to show you the heat. And then we're going to move over to we just saw the video of SCAR, the Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research. So this will be in the show notes. They have wonderful videos. They have very long programs. There's a lot of scientists talking. Excuse me. And today I watched one on tipping points that I learned so much. I don't know where this has been, or I haven't been searching for Antarctica as much as I should, but holy shit, this is good. So they have created this, and that's where we got the picture from. And I'm not going to pretend that I had enough time to really get into this on Antarctica, but how they get their data, and what the grids mean. But maybe I could get someone from their organization on as a guest with us. What do you think, Jen? That would
be great.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it would help us, and maybe I'll write to somebody, and they can give us a little lesson and help us learn, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, good.
All right. So now we're going to move on, and Jennifer, take it away, because this was a good one.
Right. Yeah. So, guys, this is science news. What's causing this summer's extreme heat waves? So interesting, guys. Just out 2 days ago, the dog days of summer are upon us. Brutal heat waves were roasting regions around the globe, smashing records with unrelenting severity. In the southwest United States and northern Mexico, devastating heat has been scorching the region for a few weeks. For 19 straight days and counting, temperatures in Phoenix have reached above 43.3 degrees Celsius, which is 110 degrees Fahrenheit, surpassing a record streak from 1974. The Texas city of El Paso has endured an unprecedented 33 consecutive days. Oops, what happened? Cancel. Oh, sorry. 33 consecutive days of temperatures reaching over 37.8 degrees Celsius, which is 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And that streak is only expected to continue. And after midnight on July 17th, Death Valley, California, may have sweltered under the highest temperatures ever recorded anywhere for that time at 48.9 degrees C, which is 120 degrees. China has also been enduring extreme heat for weeks. July 16th, the township of Sanabo broke not only national record with a temperature of 52.2 C, which is 126 Fahrenheit, but also the record for highest temperature above 40 degrees north latitude. Meanwhile, Southern Europe is in its second heat wave in a week, with Rome reaching an all-time new high of 42.9 degrees C, which is 109 degrees 0.2 Fahrenheit, on July 18th, while the town of Catalonia, Spain, set a new record for that region at 45.3 C, which is 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah. What's concocting these bouts of extreme heat? It's partly because the world has been exceptionally warm this year, thanks to compounding of human-caused climate change with the natural climate phenomena called El Niño, whose influence is known to temporarily warm our planet. But it's not just Earth on a stovetop. The cooks have been busy. The jet streams, powerful ribbons of wind that control much of the planet's weather, have been meandering and getting stuck, holding bulges of hot air over many parts of the Earth. Well, that's not unusual. Some scientists have suggested that climate change may be altering the dynamics of consequential winds. Here's what we know about how climate change is impacting extreme heat and how these potentially dangerous events occur. Extreme heat waves are becoming more likely. Let's start with that hot stovetop. Humans have been warming the planet for decades by emitting climate warming greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. That made extreme heat waves more common, many researchers say. Since 2004, scientists have conducted attribution studies to estimate how much climate change may have influenced the probability and severity of a specific bout of extreme weather. Those studies essentially simulate the world with and without climate change to compare how often certain types of extreme weather occur. The work of the World Weather Attribution Initiative has repeatedly indicated that climate change has made extreme weather events like heat waves more likely and more severe. A May report concluded that an April heat wave in South Asia, during which locations of Thailand and Laos set new national temperature records of 45.4 and 42.9 respectively, was made at least 30 times more likely due to climate change. Another study suggested that a different heat wave in northern Africa and southwestern Europe, which subjected some areas to temperatures 20 degrees C higher than normal in April, was at least 100 times more likely due to climate change. Climate change is pushing heat waves in general to have higher temperatures, but it's having a particularly strong impact on the frequency of the most extreme events, says atmospheric scientist Norabu Nakamura of the University of Chicago. What used to be once every 1,000 years might now occur every 20 years, he says. It's still a rare event, but you can actually feel that in our daily lives. How heat waves form. What's actually whipping up these summer scorchers, and why are only certain regions getting roasted? The answer lies roughly 8 to 10 kilometers high in the sky. There, the jet streams flow at about 177 kilometers per hour on average, although they can reach speeds of more than 400 kilometers per hour, faster than a Shinkansen bullet train. These powerful winds control much of the Earth's weather by transporting high and low pressure systems around the world. Jet streams develop where large masses of air with different temperatures meet, flowing faster where the temperature contrast is stronger. When jet streams are blowing strong, they tend to orient themselves more parallel to the equator, says an atmospheric scientist, Jennifer Francis of Woodwell Climate Research Center in Falmouth, Massachusetts. But when those winds get weaker, then we tend to get the jet streams that take bigger meanders. When the jet stream meanders, it forms broad waves with crests and troughs that reach north and south for hundreds of kilometers. Jet streams in the northern and southern hemisphere typically undulate more during their respective summers. Due to the Earth axial tilt, polar regions receive more warming sunlight during their summers, weakening their temperature contrast with the tropics. As the waves become amplified, high and low pressure systems in the crests and troughs encroach farther north and south. Sometimes these pressure systems become stuck over one spot for days to weeks, causing the weather to persist over a region. When a high pressure system gets stuck over an area, it pushes air down towards the surface, compressing and warming the air. The high pressures also push clouds away, clearing the sky for the hot sun to beat down unabated. These factors compound to produce a heat dome, a phenomena that scorches and often dries the landscape. An exception is when the heat dome forms by coastlines, such as the one that has formed over the U.S. Gulf Coast. Since the warmer air can carry more moisture, heat domes near the ocean can make for weather that is both hot and humid, a potentially lethal combination for humans. It's a bit of a mystery why pressure systems become stuck, Nakamura says, making the phenomena more difficult to predict. It may occur when jet streams become especially wavy, he and a colleague reported in 2018 in Science. The waves may get stuck like cars in a traffic jam, causing weather to idle in place. But this explanation is a theoretical one, and more evidence is needed to validate it, Nakamura says. Until then, he says, the underlying mechanics of those jams will remain elusive. The jet stream's uncertain future. A related but similarly unresolved problem is how climate change may affect the dance of the jet streams in the future. In 2012, Francis and a colleague proposed climate change could make the powerful winds more wobbly. Quote, the Arctic is warming about 4 times as faster than the globe as a whole, Francis says. That means that the north-south temperature difference has been getting weaker and weaker. As a result, jet streams may be becoming more unstable, she says, and more prone to meandering. But that's still a very hotly contested hypothesis, Nakamura says, pointing out that some climate simulations have suggested that in northern hemisphere the jet stream may actually become less wavy. There is not a widely accepted consensus on this, Nakamura says. Even if the fate of the jet streams remains up in the air, one thing seems clear. Extreme heat waves aren't going anywhere.
Goodbye, wavy jet stream. Goodbye. Gets the flush of the day. That gets the flush of the day. Yeah. So because I had said, this is not your parents' El Nino, I thought we would go to climate.gov and figure out, talk about El Nino a little bit. I have to do a little bit of fixing. Something just happened, Jennifer. I want to fix you.
It's because the difference when I was reading the white page, it was a different. And then when I switch back to this screen, it always happens. Then I become a whole different color because of the light reflecting on my face. So it's
So
either
there's
from
nothing
the
I can do to
black
fix it.
background and the white background.
I can't fix it. I'll leave it then. You're just beautiful no matter what. All right. So we're going to look at from climate.gov just really quickly because we have a banger of an end article. July 2023 El Nino update. Learning the steps. The chance that our young El Nino will continue through the winter is greater than 90%. 90%. So why are forecasters so confident? What are the chances of a strong El Nino? And what effect does El Nino have on global climate patterns? We have a lot to talk about, so let's get to it. Tumbling class. The Niño 3.4 index, which measures the temperature of the surface of the central tropic Pacific Ocean, it's our primary metric for El Nino. It was 0.8 above the long-term average in that long-term 1991 to 2020 in June, according to our most consistent data set, which is the ERSS-TV5. This is comfortably above the El Nino threshold of 0.5. And so you can see here that it's gone. It's made the change. See, there's the threshold and how now it's made a change. Oh, it says the 2-year history of the sea surface temperatures in the El Nino. Yeah. So the 3-month average of Niño for the 3.4 index, the oceanic Niño index was 0.5 for April to June. Now, in order to qualify as an El Nino year and be colored red in our historical record, the ONI must be at or above the threshold for at least 5 3-month periods. So in this case, El Nino conditions would need to last through at least the August to October average to qualify. Now, we have a confident forecast for this, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Back to the present. Now we're going to middle school. El Nino is a coupled climate pattern, meaning the changes in the ocean temperature are paired with changes in the atmosphere. These changes show up in the Walker circulation, the large-scale atmospheric circulation pattern over the tropical Pacific. The average Walker circulation is driven by the very warm waters in the far western Pacific. And it consists of rising air and storms over the far western Pacific and Indonesia, west to east winds aloft, descending air and drying conditions over the eastern Pacific, and the trade winds, east to west surface winds. So this is the atmosphere-ocean feedbacks during the El Nino southern oscillation, and it shows us where the equator is, where South America is, shows us the thermocline, which Jim always talks about, which is the change in the water temperature, warmer, colder, and how this happens. El Nino shifts this circulation by increasing the amount of rising air, clouds, and rain over those warmer than average waters in the central Pacific. The trade winds and the upper level winds slow, and the overall circulation weakens. The weaker trade winds allow the surface to continue to warm, and a feedback mechanism is born. So for more details on the feedback, you can check out Michelle's excellent and tasty post, and we're not going to link to that at the moment, but you can. It'll be in the show notes. Atmospheric ocean feedbacks during El Nino. Now, there's a difference here and here. Evidence for the atmospheric part of El Nino includes changes in tropical Pacific winds and cloud patterns. At this early stage of El Nino, the atmospheric response is present but still quite weak, essential relative to the oceanic anomalies. We did observe more rain and clouds over the central Pacific and some drier conditions over Indonesia, which is typical for El Nino. Also, the Equatorial Southern Oscillation Index, a measure of the Walker circulation strength, was at the bottom quarter of all the June values, so respectively negative. Negative indicates weaker. However, stronger El Nino events are usually preceded by bursts of much weaker trade winds, but we haven't seen much of them, not so far. Winds and atmospheric conditions always fluctuate more from month to month than ocean temperatures, so this weak response isn't a reason to doubt the forecast yet. It's still very likely that El Nino will continue at least through the end of the year, but this El Nino is taking place in the context of a very warm global ocean, which is why I say it is not your parents' El Nino. And we don't know how the warm globe will affect El Nino's atmospheric conditions. So these are the differences. And it says June 2023, the sea surface temperature difference from the 1985 to 1993 average details. Much of the global oceans are warmer. So it's going to be different. One potential outcome is a weaker atmospheric response than we might otherwise expect. The strength of the atmospheric response is related to the pattern of sea surface temperature throughout the tropics. When El Nino is clearly the loudest voice in the room, as it was during the 1997-98 El Nino, the atmospheric response is clear. It's clear. However, when the western Pacific and the rest of the tropics are also warm, which we have shown in other slides earlier in the presentation, it could be muddled. This outcome is important not just for El Nino in itself, but because many of El Nino's impacts on global weather and climate patterns are communicated around the world via these atmospheric changes. So this was June 1997 when the sea surface temperature from the 85-93 average was obviously looks a lot different, right, Jen? Yeah.
Sure does.
And the Nutcracker. Now it's time to talk forecast, and that's always what everybody wants to know, what's going to happen. Now it's time. So our computer climate models are consistently predicting that El Nino will continue through the winter, providing a major source of confidence. And they're not talking confidence. Oh, we have confidence it won't be bad or good. We have confidence that it's going to stay. And the July 2023 climate model forecast for Niño 3.4 temperature anomaly in 2023 from North American Model Ensemble. The black line shows the model forecast average. Darker gray envelope shows the range of 68% of all model forecasts there. Lighter gray shows the range of 95% of all model forecasts. So NOAA, they based the graph on a graph from Emily Becker, who we don't have right now to show. Also, there's quite a lot of warmer than average water under the surface of the tropical Pacific. In fact, the temperature of the subsurface in June 23 was the third warmest June in value in our record, which goes back to 79. This warm subsurface will feed the surface for the next few months, helping to sustain those El Nino conditions. So how about potential strength? El Nino's maximum Niño 3.4 index values, also known as its peak, almost always occurs in November to January. And we estimate about an 80% chance that this El Nino will peak with a maximum Niño 3.4 index of at least 1C, a 50% chance at least 1.5, and a 20% chance of above 2. These thresholds are respectively how we categorize moderate, strong, and very strong El Nino events, but this is just an informal classification. Generally, the stronger the sea surface temperature anomaly, the stronger the atmospheric response, and the more consistent pattern of El Ninos remote impacts on rain and temperature. However, as I mentioned, the patterns. However, as I mentioned above, the warm global ocean may complicate this relationship. So that said, El Nino is still our best source of information for upcoming seasonal weather and climate. Despite operating against a backdrop of higher global temperatures, El Nino's impact on the global temperature and temperature patterns is strongest in the northern hemisphere winter, which is us, right? And I both because that's when El Nino reaches its peak, and because the jet stream, which is influenced by El Nino, is a major player for winter weather. So this is pretty cool, the typical impacts of El Nino on the jet stream and the winter climate across the United States. Yeah. So other parts of the globe may see impacts before that. June, August dryness is common for India. Not from what we've seen in some of those flooding films. For maritime continent and eastern Australia and the Caribbean. Warmth is common in the Caribbean and parts of South America. And then there's the hurricane season in both eastern and Pacific oceans. So NOAA's Climate Prediction Center prepares outlooks for the upcoming seasons, and it'll take the El Nino and climate trends into account. Keep an eye on those maps for patterns that forecasters will think most likely later this season, fall and winter. So I thought that was very interesting to go over, since we did say it's not your father's El Nino. And it's not. It's not. But we're going to move on because of what's happening with food security, with crop failure, with all of this. This is hot off the presses from today. We are going to end with this article. We're moving from El Nino to heat waves that threaten food. Take it away, Jennifer.
Right, guys. So this has just come out in The Guardian today. This is hot off the press, not even a couple of hours old. Rampant heat waves threaten food security of entire planet, scientists warn. After the hottest day ever, researchers say global heating may mean future crop failures on land and silent dying in the oceans. Successive heat waves threaten nature's ability to provide us with
Keep
food.
reading. Keep reading.
say
keep reading.
researchers as they warn of an unseen, silent dying in our oceans amid record temperatures scorching the earth. Heat waves are ripping through Europe, the US, and China, with global hottest day ever recorded at the start of July, endangering human life as well as land and sea that depend upon it. Our food system is global, says John Marsham, professor of atmospheric science at the University of Leeds. There are growing risks of simultaneous major crop losses in different regions in the world, which will really affect food availability and prices. This is not what we're seeing right now, but in the coming decades, that's one of the things I'm really scared of. As a human being, if you're wealthy enough, you can get inside and put the air conditioning on. But natural ecosystems and farmed ecosystems can't do that. The 2018 European heat wave led to multiple crop failures and a loss of yield of up to 50% in Central and Northern Europe. In 2022, record temperatures in the UK killed fruit and vegetables on the vine. Heat waves are expected to become 12 times more frequent by 2040 compared with pre-warming levels. Although one heat wave might not kill an ecosystem, longer and more frequent events will mean nature does not have time to recover. Marsham said, "People are generally isolated from the effects of the weather on which we all depend. We go to shops to buy food. We don't grow it ourselves. But if you talk to farmers anywhere in the world, they are extremely aware of what the weather is doing and the impacts on their farming. The climate crisis doesn't just increase atmospheric heat waves, but oceanic ones too, harming coastal communities and threatening another key food source for humans. Heat stress causes dramatic die-offs, such as the 2021 heat dome along Canada's Pacific coast, which killed an estimated 1 billion marine animals. Daniela Schmidt, professor of earth scientists at the University of Bristol, said, "We often think about impacts on ecosystems on land because it's easy to see, and the plants and animals get too hot. But people generally don't think about marine heat waves. That's what really worries me, that unseen, silent dying. Some of the most vulnerable ecosystems are the ones used to having a stable temperature year-round, such as species in the tropical oceans. Warming of 2C is expected to essentially wipe out tropical coral reefs. They have the highest biodiversity of any ecosystem globally and support more than 500 million people worldwide, most of whom are in poor countries. I've got young kids," said Marsham. "Whenever you watch Finding Nemo or read a book about coral reefs, you can't help but feel on some level you're selling them a lie. Lest we act fast, those systems are going to disappear. Some people might not care about coral reefs, but there's no part of the globe that is immune to the impacts of climate change." Schmidt added, "Not everything has to have a financial value. You need plants for every breath you take. It's the oxygen you breathe. We tend to forget that." Research is just starting to scratch the surface of understanding how heat affects ecosystems. Under high emission scenario of 4.4C warming, 41% of the land vertebrates will experience extreme thermal events by 2099, according to the research published in Nature. Stresses induced by hot temperatures can affect numerous problems affecting growth, fertility, immunity, and changes in behavior. Species are moving up mountains and toward the poles to evade the heat. Ultimately, it is likely to drive more species towards extinction. Nature can, however, play an important role in making extreme heat more bearable, say experts. Bodies of water, such as ponds and fountains, make landscapes more resilient in hot, dry summers, helping prevent wildfires and reducing the impacts of drought. Dr. Nicole Miranda, senior researcher at the Oxford Martin Program on the Future of Cooling, said, "The presence of vegetation and water in our landscape can serve as ways to passively cool our surroundings. Trees and plants provide shading and also have the mechanism of evapotranspiration. Bodies of water, such as ponds and fountains, capture the heat around them by evaporating water. One example is the large-scale green corridors in Medellin, Colombia, which have reportedly cut urban heat by 2C." So there you go, Sandy. Yeah, that's that.
Yeah, it's quite a little crazy.
It's a little bit crazy.
It's a little bit crazy. But we brought you a lot of information tonight, and I hope that you guys will go to the SCAR site and learn about Antarctica, because they've got phenomenal information on there. Really phenomenal.
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
they do.
So,
well, this has been an amazing tour de force that we've jointly assembled all this stuff together here today, Sandy. And, you know, it's very sobering. There's a lot of stuff happening very, very quickly. And all I can say is that the future is going to be more different than the present.
Sure.
And probably not in a good way. And that's due to the exponential nature of it all.
Thank you, Donald. People who care the most suffer the most. Seems like it. Yeah. And Void, Sandy, it's just got it's summer comment, and so I replied, I have that 2021 meta study on global warming. Oh, okay. Yeah, we get a lot of that shit, you know, that I get it. Like, oh, it's summer. Oh, climate's always changed. I can't stand it. It's horrible. But anyway, guys, thank you so much, Jennifer. I love you. I really enjoyed doing this with you.
I did too, and I love you too.
I love you too. So we are going to say goodnight, and I am back on Tuesday. I think this Tuesday, but I've got a couple of interviews coming up, and we do have Jennifer Francis coming, but she's decided to wait till October, and I have Margaret Klein Solomon coming on also. So we've got some good stuff, and then we might be taking a little bit of time off in August. We might need it. I might need it.
Will.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so very much. So very much. And
yeah. What's the worst case scenario? Plan out in your head how it's all gonna go. So you think you got it covered, but there's always something new that you discover you've not thought about. You can never figure out every possible outcome, and you're so scared you'll get it wrong. Have a good time, but a worry after. Petrified, what they think I'm awkward. When your brain's wired for disaster, even good things leave a bitter taste. Try to calm down, thoughts spinning faster. Terrified, hide it with laughter. When your brain's wired for disaster, even good things leave a bitter taste. Even good things leave a bitter taste, yeah. Even good things leave a bitter taste, yeah. Even good things leave a bitter taste, yeah. Even good things leave a bitter taste. Something unexpected happens, you can't let it go. Caught up in your own distractions, you already know that you're gonna think about this for a while.